Now we are ready for the show.
We are live.
The show that is Cause and Defect.
Serious conversations with not so serious people.
Very much not so serious people.
We have made it to episode 7.
You know, and I feel like I need to start by just saying that I do have more than one hat, but I tend to only wear this one all the time. And by previous episodes, if you've seen my hair, you know why.
Yeah, and he's too lazy to do it. So
Yeah, exactly.
whatever.
I
do also have hats, but I don't wear them.
Yes. You were wearing a hat earlier, though.
I know, but that was for the first time forever, and that's because I was rocking a Proterra hat.
That's true. Everyone
Go
check
Earth.
Everyone for Earth.
Ooh, pardon me.
All right. So
Tears are running right through me.
So episode 7.
Yep, this one is going to be entitled Humanity, the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
Yes.
We're going to lead this episode off with with one of those arguments that we had a while back. We haven't done it in a few episodes.
We haven't done it, yeah.
But we're going to we've done it at the end, but this time we're going to do it at the beginning. It's a fight, or a theoretical fight.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
A debate about who would win in a fight between two obscure characters. Sometimes more than two. Who knows? It depends on the card you draw.
We'll see what happens.
That's right. So we're gonna do our best to give our characters and their attributes some good representation in this episode.
And somebody else will have to decide who wins because
right.
We'll never pick the other one.
That's right.
Okay.
So we're both really stubborn.
Yes.
All right. So Brennan, why don't you go first? Tell the
I'll
people
start
what
us
you got.
off. So we got one character and he has 2 attributes. So we have Jason. That's a good one. Armed with the super glue fire hose. And his bottom half is, oh gosh, Abraham Lincoln.
So you got a tall Jason.
He's already tall.
He's got some slacks.
Ooh, I bet. And this lumberjack type Jason, he's going to be, I don't know why I always just assume Abraham Lincoln's a lumberjack for some reason.
It's the era and the beard.
And I think, wasn't there a movie about him, like a vampire hunter with like
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
I've got to watch that. Oh,
it's actually pretty good.
We didn't run through what the rest of the episode is going to be. So we're starting with this game. We're going to go into our humanity. We're going to start with good, go to bad, and then go to ugly. And then at the very end, we're going to play a new segment. We're going to call it Animations Gone Wild.
Yes.
And we have written some bad one-sentence synopses of animated movies, and the other's going to try to guess what it is. So that's going to be a fun one.
It will be hilarious.
To interrupt this game. I should have covered that at the beginning.
It's okay. We will also finish with some uplifting thoughts, since I think generally it's going to go down a bad road.
Yeah, I mean, the last game is going to be uplifting too.
It will. Yeah, right. Right.
But we're going to end with some good things about humanity because it's going to get real bad. We're going to. This is an episode where we're going to hate on a lot of things.
Yes.
Without a lot of substance behind it. So judge us if you will.
It's all opinion based. That's the fun parts about it.
Oh yeah, freedom of speech, baby. It's the
all
best.
Right. So let me repeat: Jason armed with the super glue fire hose.
Yes.
And his bottom half is Abraham Lincoln.
Bottom half. All right. So I have everyone at Burning Man armed with nunchucks and ghost pepper spray.
Oh shit.
So this is going to be a good fight, I think.
You know what? I guarantee you there was already a high number of nunchucks at Burning Man. I just
Probably
feel like
with flaming tips. And
yeah, so just weird hippie shit.
Oh, yeah. But then some of them are going to be like, nah, man, I'm a peace lover.
Yeah, and they're the ones that get pepper sprayed. They're not usually the ones wielding it. Wielding it.
It's wielding.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. But it sounds like we both got our work cut out for us.
I don't think so.
I mean,
because Jason already takes down like groups of people at a time.
Well, I get that, but he also has a completely mortal bottom half.
Yeah,
so
Abraham
that's
Lincoln.
like that's the one crutch he's got.
Nah, because he doesn't really have to get close to these hippies. His pepper spray,
but he's gonna have
pepper spray is rendered useless at this point. It's not gonna do anything.
Are you sure about that?
For some reason,
certain?
Jason can catch up with anybody running.
While he's walking.
Yeah, so I'm assuming he power walks like crazy fast.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no catching up to him. And I got a fire hose to just blow you back.
Right, but there's a giant group of hippies with nunchucks and ghost pepper spray. Even if it doesn't hurt his respiratory system, Abraham Lincoln's legs are going to be feeling some pain.
I just imagine like a World War Z, like the movie with all
exactly
that.
What it's gonna be. Except some of them are going to be on acid and
they're going to
be shit. They'll be like, whoa, dude, and like not even
some of them
coherent.
are some of them are going to be running the wrong way. And
yeah,
shit.
Most of them will be dehydrated as well. So I'll give you that.
And it's muddy,
in
so
the
they
middle
can't
of the
run very
desert.
fast. I've seen the pictures. It's muddy out there.
Mm-hmm.
They're all gross. They all stink.
They're all already gross even
Yeah.
before being at Burning Man.
I gotta. I mean, there's a lot of people at Burning Man, so I'm gonna assume that I'm gonna take out at least like 300.
I'll give you that, but there are a lot. I think there's at least 1,000.
There's
at Burning Man.
there's probably a couple thousand.
I don't know
for sure.
what it is. I really don't have.
I'm
any
pretty sure
experience.
it's like thousands.
Can I take the Burning Man himself onto my side?
I don't know what the Burning Man himself is.
No, it's just a
some
giant wooden stick figurine that they catch on fire. The Burning Man.
Sure, you can bring that with you.
Sweet.
It looks like a KKK party out there or something.
Possibly, except they don't have torches.
Oh, true.
Yeah,
No tiki
and they're
torch.
not all screaming, "We hate black people." They're
like Dave Chappelle says, the tiki torch whites.
Yes. Oh my god.
That's hilarious.
All right. So I don't know. I really think
know,
Abraham Lincoln's mortal legs are going to be the downfall of Mr. Jason with the super glue fire.
You're probably right, and they're probably way like thinner and scrawnier than Jason's legs are. So
I think
that
so.
is a
have trouble carrying
that's a tough
around
one.
that
But
thunderbolts
I don't even
of
I
a
don't
torso.
Yeah. I don't think it's necessarily him that's the problem, though. I think it's that you have thousands of people.
I think, yeah, you're right. But Jason, without Abraham Lincoln's mortal legs, with the super glue fire hose, you can make a really good argument.
Yeah, true, because he doesn't die,
right?
Pretty much. He
has a machete. He could just fucking hack through.
But he has
everybody.
A fire hose.
Like super glue, like
That's
pointed
disgusting.
at their feet and then cut their heads off. You'd have a good argument.
Yeah,
there.
he'd take out a couple of them. You know, I don't know. Even with no legs, he'd probably still do some damage for a while.
Probably.
He's just shanking people as they come up to him.
Yeah, that's true.
And he's still got the fire hose, so I'm going to take out a lot of people.
But think about thousands of people armed with ghost pepper spray. They could probably just melt that poor bastard.
Yeah. I don't really think he'd have a chance.
It would be entertaining to watch.
It would be very fun to watch.
Let's say that. I mean, I would like to be an immortal guy with a machete at Burning Man.
Yeah, I'd have to imagine a lot of those people would probably just run away. So you may only have, like, out of thousands of people at Burning Man, you may have like 200 people that want to fight some Jason.
That's true.
The rest of them are going to run away.
Yeah, that's probably
so he
true.
can easily take out 200 people with the equipment he's got.
It's possible. It's
They
arguable.
they all flee, and he's just burning the Burning Man, you know, by himself.
But that is also
become
all
the victor.
speculation.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Like the rest of
1,800
it.
of the 2,000 people at Burning Man are going to run away.
Yes, a lot of them. Most
At least
of
the
them.
people on hallucinogenics are probably going to run away. Except,
I mean, would you run towards Jason?
If I was on Angel Dust, probably.
Yeah,
There are some people on Angel Dust out there.
I didn't know it was that sort of party.
Oh well, who knows, man? They probably have
a little bit of everything.
whatever out there.
Yeah.
But I've heard people tell me stories about Angel Dust and how you basically just feel invincible. I heard a story. I don't quote me on this. I think it's true. I don't really know because
who knows?
Right. It was probably just made up. But
only God knows.
That's true. Or the guy that told me, I don't know. I think he read a newspaper article or something.
He just had a dream.
But it was some guy on PCP, Angel Dust, and he felt immortal. He climbed to the top of a light post and dove off head first.
Oh my gosh.
And broke his neck and died.
Yeah, I'm gonna assume he did not live.
Yeah. So if that's true or not, I don't know. But it sounds like a funny story.
Yeah, life lesson for anybody out there thinking
Darwin
about
Award for that guy. Like,
thinking
really.
about trying some Angel Dust later today.
Mm-hmm. All right, so you guys can decide on this one. I think we're done here. We've both made our cases.
Jason,
you could harp on it for forever.
If anyone knows anything about Burning Man, please chime in.
Yeah, because
I don't really know a lot.
Yeah.
And I don't think they're the the most testosterone driven group of people.
Probably not. I would guess that there's maybe like 10 to 15 people there that even work out.
The rest of them don't even know they're at Burning Man. They just happen to wander through at the time. Just heard
wandering through the desert.
Yeah, just heard the music
using
and
like
just collected.
palm leaves as shoes. You know,
look like Castaway or something.
Yes. All right. So,
all right, let's get into today's topic.
Let's talk about humanity.
Yeah, so we talked about a lot of things that humanity does wrong, and I guess renewables is things that humans are on the right path.
Yeah. And humans are amazing creatures, and I'm gonna reiterate that a few times throughout this. We're amazing guys.
Just the capacity we have, mentally and physically.
Yeah, and I'm being a braggart on the part of humanity here, because I'm trying to make up for later on when I'm gonna be fucking judo chopping humanity in the neck, because I'm really gonna rip us a new one. So, we need to hear it.
Yeah,
and we got things to improve on.
Yeah, I definitely. So I wrote down just I'll end with this. I'll go with this first. Sorry. Just if you think about the best people, I think some of the best ways to do that is those people are awesome videos.
Yeah.
Just to watch like how athletic and, I mean, you really just the human body has obviously evolved over thousands of years, hundreds of thousands of years to be as insanely.
Have we?
Yeah,
evolved.
I don't know.
That's going to be our next episode. This is why we're segueing into evolution after this, guys.
Yeah,
so be ready.
So if you're a creationist, you won't agree with me.
Good luck arguing. What do you have? What proof do you have?
None at all. The Bible. But I love those videos because those people are insanely athletic, and it's just crazy. Like with a little bit of determination and like discipline, you can be incredibly good at a lot of things. Mm-hmm. Like talent, not only like talented and athletic, but you can be incredibly smart and just eloquent, well-read. There's so many things you can do if you use your time.
As you do things right.
Yeah. Use the discipline to actually accomplish things. Mm-hmm. And it's what I'm not trying to segue too quickly, but it's what bothers me so bad about people is they have such a capacity and don't use it.
Yeah, let's focus on the good for at least a minute. I took my time to write down a bunch of really good attributes that humanity has, and this has the potential to be a long episode because there's a lot of stuff to talk about with humanity, obviously.
Yeah.
But I've got a few bullet points
which
here
will
that
never
I
hit.
Cover.
Sorry, which will never hit everything, but we'll touch on things a lot.
Right, and we're probably gonna have another episode similar to this.
Oh, I'm sure.
Like all the others, but the first few things I wrote down were sports, building prowess, and art.
Yeah.
So just like if you look at different cathedrals, like the Cathedral of Notre Dame or the La Sagrada Familia in Spain, it's I don't know. Have you heard of this, Brennan?
That sounds like a long word.
Well, yeah, it's a it's a cathedral in Spain that has been. Don't quote me on this, but I'm pretty sure it's been over 100 years in the making. I don't really know.
I think I know what you're talking about. I think you're right.
It's not finished yet.
Right.
But it is a sight.
It's crazy that the people that started it won't see it be finished. I think I don't know if that's a good or cool thing, but it's interesting.
It's interesting.
It's cool how we can like keep a certain goal in mind over like a century.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Because it's worth it for a lot of people. I mean, there are a lot of religious people and a lot of people willing to dedicate their lives to building this giant fortress to God. And it's like it shows. It's really like it's pushing people's capacity to the limit on what they can do with their lives and with their building knowledge.
Yeah, not only do they have like that focus to continue going along this path, but they have the creativity to, I'm sure, improve as they go along. Right. You know what I mean? And just have this sort of just crazy structure in mind that would take so long. Like that's not any feat that, it's funny when you think of like the business meeting of how that had to go. You know what I mean? It's like, hey, we want to, build this church for God. Like it's going to cost, millions of dollars. And they're like, well, when's it going to be finished? Nah, I don't know, like 100 years or so.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, right. They're, you know how many times they probably were like, yeah, we're not going to do that because you don't make any money off of it for so long.
But I could also see them immediately going, yep, let's fucking do it. Let's make the best church in the world.
Maybe it really was no thought at all. Yeah, it was just like, it's a hands down thing.
Mm-hmm. That's right. I'm going to keep going down my bullet points here.
Please do.
I've got a lot, and I would like to cover most of them. So the very next bullet point I have is language, high consciousness, profundity in general, spirituality, and philosophy. And that's one thing.
That was a lot of points all at once.
Yeah, because it's all kind of related. Oh, excuse me.
Yeah.
But it's something that I was thinking about things that are unique to humanity, and we're kind of alone in almost everything here.
Right. That's why we stand out as much as we do.
Mm-hmm. But it's a beautiful thing, language at all.
I know.
I mean, because it's something that has really fascinated me. It's hard to really comprehend even the thoughts of somebody else who has spoken this different language for so long. Like, think about the Japanese language, guys. If you're sitting here, maybe you're bilingual and you can speak Japanese and American English. But if you are across the seas, like completely across the world, I mean, now we have a more globalized society, but back in the day, think about the different thoughts that we couldn't even really fathom because our language can't convey them.
Yeah, it doesn't have that same meaning. It's like with dead languages and things like that. We just don't even have like the same words that they do. We don't have like the same symbols for things. I guess we don't symbolize it the same way, so we speak about things completely differently.
Right.
You know, if it's not something that's present in that society at the time, you know, I've heard this, and it's probably not true, but it makes a good point. But like the Inuit people or some like sub societies of them don't actually have like a word for jealousy because they're just such a community that doesn't like share everything. Like everything's for the village type of thing. So that's not even like a word or something they think about.
That's amazing.
You know, but obviously for us, it's like on the forefront of most of our characteristics.
Yeah, seriously, we are, at least here in America and in general Western culture, we are selfish as shit.
Yeah.
Like, golly,
you know, I have to blame some of that has to be evolution to a certain degree. Like we wouldn't have survived in the way that we did probably. And a lot of like, you have to think of like little tribes that were around. They felt like if they weren't selfish among their tribe, that they may have perished and died off and things like that.
Right, but that's on like a tribal basis. I'm talking about like on an individual basis.
Right.
It's good to be selfish in or just conservative of yourself in ways. You can't give everything away.
Right.
And if you're conservative among your tribe, or that's something back in the day that was basically necessary. I don't think selfishness on an individual basis is necessary.
Yeah, maybe way back when, well, before we were like nomadic and moved in tribes and stuff, but that's going way back.
Oh yeah. But excuse me, I said spirituality was a good thing, and I wanna hit that for a second, because I guess we're not the only species that meditates and that kind of stuff, right? Probably not. Maybe
I'm not sure on that one.
Maybe not consciously.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine that they would do it in a conscious fashion that we would. But I think what's so fascinating, well, I think spirituality is almost necessary for conscious beings like us that can like inward reflect and think about, you know, the past, the present, and the future.
Right.
It's like it's our way of just kind of making sense when we don't understand it.
Yeah.
You know, we have to make some sort of something that, or some sort of idea or structure that makes us feel like we're important and we have a meaning. So we create this sort of spirituality that makes us feel like we are a part of the universe.
Right. Because we are.
Yeah.
It's like this inevitable thing. We're
yeah.
like the highest consciousness on this planet that we know of, at least.
Yeah.
And it's something that's going to come with the territory, I guess.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's good, and I understand it. And I think, you know, spirituality is fine, especially, you know, if it makes you kind of reflect a little bit more on yourself and meditate a little bit more and realize your actions and kind of be able to control yourself a little better because you have more of a purpose and more of a goal.
Right.
Personally, it's not really for me, but in certain fashions, I guess, you know.
You mean spirituality in general or meditating?
No, I like meditating. I'm just not, I don't care for being spiritual or.
Well, you could argue that meditation is a spiritual act. When I say spiritual, I'm not meaning like you're looking to God in some sort. I'm thinking you're just looking beyond yourself in a way.
Yeah, well, I mean, but also I don't think that all meditation is, you know, looking for something out there.
Sure.
You know, it's for me, it's more of a way to reflect on how to kind of control my brain as it meanders through different thoughts and, you know, different. Excuse me, like, you know, your brain just kind of trails off on a subject, and it's about kind of bringing your brain back and saying, oh, let me control that. Let me not just go off on a tangent. That way, when you get emotional, like later in life or something comes up, you have that focus of not just running off on that course of action or that direction of thought. You can kind of bring yourself back, you know, focus, you know, take your deep breaths, you know, focus on your breath, and then kind of regurgitate what you think is the best at that point.
Right. And I see meditation in a different light, because there are a lot of different types of meditation.
Yeah, it's all different goals and stuff in mind.
Right. But generally the way that I meditate is like so the aim is to control yourself.
Yeah.
Too. But the way that I see it is it's like two sides of a coin. So I like to see where my brain goes just as much as I like to bring it back.
Kind of let it go down the rabbit hole.
That's like my favorite thing in the world to do, is sit there and just watch what it does.
Yeah.
Just watch what happens and like almost rise above myself and watch myself happen.
Right.
If I can.
It's kind of almost like letting yourself outside of those restrictions you usually set for yourself.
Exactly. And eventually, if it's real, I hope to astrally project. I don't know if it's real. Something I'm very skeptical about, but I've meditated for hours on end before. and I get to a certain state where I can't even tell if my eyes are open or closed.
That's super cool.
And like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And it just takes a certain patience.
Yeah, I haven't achieved that level. I'd love to. I don't even know if you would consider this a form of meditation, but the way I do is I almost, like, when I go down that rabbit hole of just thoughts like on in, just going from one thing to the next, that's when I'm usually like pacing around, and like usually my hands are crossed and I'm just looking at the ground, but you're not really looking at anything because you're just so in your head. So that's me, but when I just pace around in circles and like throughout the house, and I just go on those thought trails.
I could call that a form of meditation, I think. I mean, prayer you could call meditation, and that's like consciously saying sentences. And
true. I guess it's more or less just kind of focusing on something, and kind of keeping your brain, I think when you want to like bounce down from subject to subject, that just makes it sound like you're a squirrel with like an attention of like 4 seconds. You know what I mean? But
like that's
not what I mean. These are like long, elegant, well thought out, ideas, and they just move kind of from one thing to another.
This makes me think that we could have almost an entire episode on meditation, because it's
I would
something
love
I really
to,
enjoy talking about. But we have a lot of stuff to cover, so let's try to move on.
Yeah, press onward.
Right. So do you have any bullet points you want to share? I was going to be selfish.
No. I like the move you're on, because when we go back to just like language and just civilization in general, it's amazing that we kind of came out of like huts and caves and basically underground and underwater into where we you look today and you have huge skyscrapers and incredible things. And one of my biggest points of stress, which I don't think people take into consideration a lot, is the hard work and sacrifice of everyone that came before you. It's very easy to just pretend like, oh, this stuff's kind of always been here, it's what's normal to you. But like, I mean, just thousands and just generations of people throughout history have struggled to make these civilizations, to come up with the brain power, the hard work, people died doing it all throughout history. And here we are able to create empires and civilizations of people that have ruled the world now.
Yeah. And something I don't think people focus on enough or think about enough at all is that you are the product of your ancestors. Yeah. You literally are them. Like, your DNA is what has been passed down from them.
Exactly.
So if you just have to appreciate that. To me.
No, I agree. And I think it makes me, people are really entitled in this day and age, and I'll get more there later. But it's just like that's just one of those things that you don't think about, because you look around and everything's so easy and you get bored, and it's easy to just think like life is boring and it sucks and I don't want to do it anymore. But like, so many people had to struggle for you to be able to just sit there and think those selfish type things.
That's right.
You know what I mean? So it's something to just be gracious for. I mean, just the way we evolved too. I'll kind of jump back before we started making civilizations. I wrote on here opposable thumbs, since we had a conversation about that, which I called it disposable thumbs.
Disposable thumbs. Thumbs we could do away with or not. Yeah, right, either way, whatever.
It's a part of what makes humans so great, though. We can grab things with our hands, and we can build civilizations.
And I think that was something that was really instrumental in the initial steps that we had to take to use tools and that kind of stuff,
exactly. So. Especially if we came out of like the ocean itself, or like slug type creatures or whatever it came from. Yeah, we'll get into that more next episode. But
yeah, that'll be something we get into. But it wasn't slug type creatures that we evolved from, as far as I know. I mean, we don't really know. I guess.
I just imagine like Danny DeVito with all that Germ-X on him.
I just want to be pure.
I imagine that's what we came from. Just hairless little bald slugs.
Oh my god. So let's talk about agriculture and animal domestication for a second. The agricultural revolution was a huge thing for us, I think.
Yeah, because it started. Well, I think we domesticated animals well before that. I would have to imagine before we came in with like mass agriculture for sure. But I think that's I think we had to domesticate animals, obviously, if we wanted to keep a steady supply around. Whoever the first person was like, let's build this little area and keep all these pigs in here and just not let them go anywhere, and just feed them. And I wonder who was the first one to do that, but I imagine it was relatively easy if you just feed them.
Right. I mean, I was going to say, honestly, the first people to do it probably didn't even need fences. They were just feeding wild animals.
And they just stuck around. Yeah. And then they're like, well, I'm hungry.
And then, they killed one. The rest of them ran away, and they were like, shit, maybe we should put a fence around them.
Maybe we should put a fence.
So they can watch us kill them and then not be able to go anywhere.
And just know that they're next.
The horror.
There's blood everywhere. No, Agriculture, though, I think is something that's really undermined, especially in like the real not so like cosmopolitan areas.
Yeah.
Cosmopolitan.
Metropolitan.
Yeah.
When are you over there drinking little fairy drinks?
Yes, exactly. I have cosmopolitans twice a week.
Oh my god.
I don't. Just kidding. I've never had one.
Next thing you're gonna tell me you like eating olives for fun.
In blue cheese olives. I knew it was coming. I do. That's the only reason I'll eat an olive, though, because it takes out a lot of the flavor of the olive.
Guys, please comment below and tell Brennan how fucking disgusting he is. Thank you. All right, now continue what you were going to say.
Oh, man. Anyways, in the metropolis type areas and cities, we don't notice where our food comes from very often because we just don't see the work. And then you drive out and you can, I mean, there's parts of like South Carolina. And of course, if you go through the Midwest, I mean, it takes hundreds of acres and so much more to feed the population we have. And without the tools and science that we have now, we would never be able to feed as many people as we have now.
That's true.
So it's pretty incredible. Not only is it just the tractors and sprinkler systems and all that kind of stuff, the irrigation, which a lot of the irrigation we probably are old techniques that were passed down over a long time, but we have, I think we talked about before on here, like the satellites in space that help us grow agriculture for the mass volumes we have now.
And the genetic modifications that we make to the plants themselves to increase yields and stuff too. I mean, not all plants that grow, at least in the past, were viable at all to even eat.
I think it's amazing that we've gotten to a point where we can genetically modify something to grow exactly how we want it to grow. And it's almost perfect every time because it's essentially the exact plant that was grown before. Yeah, it is scary. It's scary in a famine type infection virus type thing that were to spread. But I know I want to bring up a point I know you're going to talk about eventually, maybe. But I don't want to. We don't have to touch on it long. But just one of the most amazing facts of humanity, and I guess it's not humanity. It's just kind of the animal kingdom in general. It's just altruism. I wanted to bring that up. Just the fact that anybody would sacrifice themselves for the greater good, or just some person that they have like an affection for or something like that, is something we just don't understand very well.
That's true. And there are people that, you brought this up to me, people that argue that altruism doesn't even exist because it's something that in the end is still a selfish act because you're trying to get your species to live on. But I immediately countered with, what about ants? I don't think ants have anywhere close to the capacity to be selfish at all.
Wouldn't think so. Yeah.
They just do. Yeah. So how can you say it doesn't exist? I don't understand.
I wonder in what ways that ants would use altruism.
This is a fact that I don't know, you may have heard this, but ants will create boats. If they, like during a flood, they'll create boats out of their own bodies to carry the entire colony on, and a bunch of them will drown.
Wow.
But it's a necessary thing. I don't think they're thinking, oh, I need to do this for the survival of the species. They just do. Yeah. It's not a thought. They don't have that.
Right. And I wonder, I guess there's nowhere to know where that really came from, how it evolved through animals and stuff like that. Right. And why they would possibly, because it's easy with humans. You think, like, if I jumped in front of a bullet for you, it's not really for you. It was for me to kind of be glorified in the action of like, hey, I just saved somebody. That makes me super nice and super cool. Right. So you can look at it in this type of selfish fashion.
I guess that depends on the person too.
Yeah.
Because depending on the person, if some stranger, some dude I didn't know had a gun pointed at him, I'd be like, I don't want anything to do with this. But if somebody had a gun pointed at you and they were about to shoot you, I might jump in front of you. And I'm not doing that to be glorified. I'm doing that to save your dumb ass. Yeah. Because I love you.
I wouldn't do it.
Whatever.
I would stay on the sidewalk if I were you.
So let's take a second. We touched on altruism. We can probably have an entire there's a lot of this stuff we're going to have entire episodes on. Yeah. But I want to take a second to talk about the sciences while we're on the good.
Yeah, I got a lot of that,
and then maybe we can either follow that up with religion or because there are good aspects of religion. We're going to talk about it negatively. But I do want to talk about the good of it too. So, so I'm not super biased, but let's talk about some of the sciences. So I wrote down geometry, calculus, astrophysics, space exploration in general, and like the way that we're able to harness energy and electricity. So let's just kind of
that is a lot of stuff to unfold there.
Yeah, it's just like the general layout of what we got going on.
I think it's just funny how for so long that the type of science that we have now was so frowned upon.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And people were literally ostracized and probably killed for the type of work they did. Definitely if
all
it in any word or in any way defamed or disproved God's existence. They weren't allowed to talk about that.
That's right, but not even about God's existence. If they were defaming the church in any way.
Yeah, or any sort of science that the church put out, prior.
Science.
prior to the.
For those of you who are listening, I just did quotations around that word.
Science. Right.
But the first thing I wrote down is geometry, because I really think that was one of the first... yeah, you call it science. I think that was one of the first real mathematical sciences that came about in our humanity. I can only imagine that because it has such a physical basis. And
right, with architecture and stuff like that.
With the pyramids and that kind of stuff. I don't know if y'all have ever looked into the structure of the pyramids and that kind of stuff, but you should totally look into that. I'm not going to talk about it right now, though. That shit is interesting as fuck.
Yeah,
I will
seriously,
just say that.
It really is.
But geometry has always fascinated me, and I've always been really good at it.
Yeah, it's a lot about obviously angles and shit like that. So a lot of it comes back to architecture and being able to, and I'm sure they did some of the architecture we talked about in a previous episode where it was kind of aligned a certain way, maybe to heat their huts or their type houses or buildings and things like that. And they had to know how to, because they just stacked rocks and shit pretty much on top of each other. So they had to know how to angle it well. To actually create like a enforced structure. Yeah,
and they had a knowledge of astrology too. I mean, as far as I know, I guess I don't know if it's actually a proven fact, but excuse me, the pyramids. I mean, and other ancient buildings are aligned with the stars in different ways. That might have been, I guess, the first science is just the study of the stars. Because think about when you first come across this sort of consciousness that we have now, any kind of smarts, the first people to start wondering what this whole place is, you're going to look to the stars and be just kind of amazed.
Yeah, like what comes from out there.
Right.
And not only that, but it's a way of navigation as well. I think that's where a lot of like the foundation of astrology and things like that came from, because they paid so much attention to where the stars were at night so they could travel towards the North Star and all that kind of stuff and know their directions. Right. Because the stars are always the same, obviously. They don't move.
Well, they do.
Well, they shift in the sky, but they always look relative to each other.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I guess.
Say it that way.
As far as I know, the North Star is the only star in the sky that doesn't move. I'm pretty sure that's the thing. I can't say for certain. Y'all can fact check me on that if you want to, but I'm pretty sure that's the thing. I know that all the stars they very slowly change in the sky, but they do move.
Yeah, I'm sure they would move because everything's moving, know. But
right. All right. So did you want to talk about space exploration at all, or we got a lot to cover, so we can move on?
No, I will talk about
because I know you're into that shit.
I am, and I don't want to bring it up because that's going to be a whole thing for me.
Yeah.
But I did write down like farming and architecture, so we were like dead on there. But not only like the physical attributes of humans, I guess, like creativity, that's more mental, but the fact that we just have emotions at all and the way that we do have emotions, like we have compassion for one another. I think that's seen in, a lot of the animal kingdom, but not to the degree that we have.
Yeah, definitely not. And
especially coming from primates.
Yeah, and that's something where I could talk about like there is compassion shown in other primates and in dolphins and just things that have really high brain capacities in general. They show compassion. They show other emotions. But one of the things that I could bring up is about chimps. Chimps are extremely temperamental and jealous even. Yeah, which is an odd thing. I was looking up some stuff online the other day, and I saw an instance of a chimp that basically he didn't kill the person, but it wasn't just one chimp. I'm sorry, it was a group of chimps that severely hurt this handler that gave one chimp a birthday cake on his birthday. And they saw that happening and they were like, what the fuck, I want some birthday cake. And then when they somehow got out and they attacked this dude, like bit his nose off, just beat him to shit, and he is super scarred for life from that kind of stuff. But it's interesting to see the different spreads of emotion that other animals in the animal kingdom have, especially with regards to jealousy. Yeah. That's just an odd thing. It's weird.
Scary, man. That's why I told Chase this before, but I'm like terrified of monkeys and shit like that because they're aggressive, they're strong.
Yeah, big old teeth.
Yeah, I wouldn't want anything to do with that.
Nah, I mean, like there are chimps that hunt other monkeys and eat them alive.
Yep. I'm glad
it's terrifying.
Even though we're only like 1% different than that, I'm thankful for that 1%.
Yeah, I mean, humans are, as we'll get into, humans are fucking awful too.
Yeah, they
like,
are.
God, really. We have, since our brains have that much more of a capacity and that wider of a breadth of emotions, we are that much more likely to commit some incredibly heinous acts.
I think we can just use that in a more creative way. We can think of like not only like how to maybe directly attack somebody, but like psychologically and do it over like a longer span of time to just really fuck somebody over.
Oh yeah, it can be awful, and we'll get into that. We're still on the good right now, so I'll talk a little bit more about that in a bit.
Please do.
But let's talk about entertainment and comedy and even magic. Let's talk about that kind of stuff.
I don't know. I feel like magic has always been frowned upon until like quite recently.
Yeah.
It's always been just like a thing that freaks people out.
You're a witch.
Yeah. They
burn him.
Yeah. It's heresy.
That's right.
We don't want anything to do with that. So, but comedy goes back, I mean, as far as like, who knows how long, with jesters, and I think everybody loves to have someone funny around them.
Yeah. I think so.
Despite who you are, even if you're someone that's pretty usually kind of stiff, I don't know. Just there's something about just kind of alleviating emotions, laughing it out, and just feeling relaxed around somebody that's more willing to just make fun of themselves and everyone else.
Yeah, that's true. And our comedy is really highly developed too, because we're not the only species that finds things funny either.
Oh, I'm sure not.
We're not. I mean, like I watched a video of some kid doing a very simple magic trick for a chimp, and he like lost his mind. You know? He was laughing. You could see he opened his mouth and like fell backwards.
Oh my god,
it was amazing.
That's hilarious.
But I know things like dolphins have to find things funny and probably fuck with other things.
Oh,
I mean,
sure.
dolphins.
Yeah.
Well,
they have to like get bored to a certain degree,
right?
And just
so they like rape each other.
Yeah.
I'm sorry,
because that's what rapists do. I'm bored today. I'm gonna go find not rape. But anyway, yeah. I think most species will find a way to entertain themselves somehow.
Yeah.
I don't know why that is. I
them.
guess it's just a distraction that's easy to get you away from this boredom. But
And I think our comedy has developed a really long way too, because in the past, especially with jesters, and even now, it's becoming a little more so that we have to really tread lightly on the comedic topics we can approach, which is part of the reason that we're going to talk about everything that we want, is because we have freedom of speech. But comedians get hated on so much for joking. It's all jokes.
Right.
We can have a whole episode on censorship too.
They're entertainers. They're meant to push the line.
Right.
You know, they're meant to make people, feel uncomfortable pretty much.
Right. And that's my thing, is like, there's 0 point in getting upset about this.
Yeah.
They're not, if they're joking about something, they're not necessarily condoning that thing. They are, they could be against that thing and still joke about it.
Right.
It's a joke.
Well, and especially nowadays when you have millions of ways to be entertained, just find something different to do.
Yeah, and
just find something better to pay attention to if that's not what you like.
In most cases, I just see getting offended about things as a waste of time, if I'm honest with you.
Yeah.
I mean, like, because getting offended at comedians is a complete fucking waste of time, because not only are they going to ignore you, they might ridicule you on stage. Why?
Yeah.
What's even the point?
Yeah, really.
There's literally 0 point. You're not going to change them. You're literally taking that energy onto yourself and harboring it.
Right.
And you're just holding that negative energy, and just let it go, dude.
I'll play devil's advocate and say I can understand if, something happened to you recently in your life and then that person just happens to pick on that thing. It's going to kind of irk you just a little bit.
Sure,
and
that's your problem.
That's fine. And it's just like that normal emotional reaction, but you can easily just, like I said, just leave and
I get
just
that.
Don't be offended. Let it go. It's just something that was said.
And that's your problem, in my opinion. I mean, like,
it's not something they should have to worry about.
Yeah, like Ricky Gervais. I watched one of his stand-up specials, and he was talking about how somebody got offended when he was making fun of nut allergies or food allergies.
Yeah.
And then somebody commented and said, "You should never joke about food allergies." He was like, "Bro, I joke about Nazis and racism and all this other kind of shit, and you want me not to joke about food allergies?"
Right. I'm like,
what?
Yeah, just
You
get
joking?
out of here, right?
I thought I was the comedian up here.
Yeah, right. I don't think you could just never take that seriously. Never give it any ounce of thought. Anyways, we got off track of talking good about people.
Oh, well,
immediately go down to talking trash.
Sorry. That's very easy for us. But I wanted to talk about entertainment for a minute, because I wanted to talk about the movie industry and how far it has come. In particular, with respect to the new Avengers movies. Just those kind of visual effects that we've been able to produce are amazing.
Yeah.
Really just I can see how people get stuck sitting on their ass just taking in all of this stuff that humanity's creating and not doing things for themselves, because it's so easy to be entertained.
Yeah,
it is
easy.
Incredibly entertaining.
It's very fun to be distracted by other people doing crazy things. And I like Avengers too for for the special effects and things like that. I mean, I think that's incredible technology and they do very well. But not only that, and just the facts of movies is that it can, just like music or anything like that, something creative that someone produces, puts a lot of hard work in, and then it can speak to someone's like entire life, and it can really kind of change a part of who you are in general, just based off of the way that you interact or associate with some movie or some character can kind of speak to you as a person.
And that's something that I don't think enough people think about either, is how they're influencers more than anything. Like, they really change the person you are.
Yeah, I'd have to say they kind of sculpt society and culture to a certain degree.
Yeah, and they like with giving us the experiences, like for example, 12 Years a Slave and Django and those kind of stuff, really put you back in the day of what those terrible people were like.
Yeah, really.
And it really puts you there and makes you think like, damn,
right,
my ancestors were shit.
Right. And not only that, to a different degree, like, imagine how many times you've just quoted a movie to a friend or something and didn't even think about it. It's just something funny. It like makes a lot of people laugh because everybody knows what you're talking about because everyone's seen the same movies and shit.
Right.
Like, it's a way of bringing people together too and having like some sort of topic of conversation. And people just thought of this shit off the top of their head and just wrote it down, put a lot of hard work into it, and now millions of people can talk about it and interact over it.
Yeah, it's amazing. Writers don't get enough credit.
No, the actors get all the credit and they just kind of do the shit. I mean, it's still, I'm sure, a hard job. I wouldn't want to do it either, but the writers are the ones that really have to sit there just day and night just thinking of the perfect things to say.
Yeah.
And a way to convey their ideas.
Things that won't ruffle too many feathers. Not something we're worried about.
Yeah,
here.
Unfortunately, if you want to appeal to the masses, you kind of have to just, lay low and not offend as many people as possible. Yeah, right. But unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, but for us, that's definitely not our goal.
No, we're not worried about those kind of things. I couldn't spend my time worrying about what other people think. It would take up my entire life. I'm too busy thinking about a million other things.
Yeah, just don't.
I don't care about other people.
I would never be able to get through the day if I had to stop and think about what everyone thought and how they felt about what I said and what I did.
Right.
I would just never get anything done. I felt like.
So I am basically through with the main points. I did want to harp a little bit on harnessing electricity.
Okay.
Just for a minute.
Just one of the. Yeah, go ahead. I got some things to say on that too.
Well, I was just going to say, I think that's something that has come a really long way in a really short time.
Yeah, look at what we're doing. Yeah.
But even still, if you do research into it, like that's something that I've done a lot of research into, is electrical theory and the history of electrical experimentation and that kind of stuff. I've done a lot of reading up on that. And the more that you read into that stuff, the more that you feel like today could very, very easily be a completely different society than what we have now. If we had, just for one example, if we had taken some of Tesla's inventions and implemented them when he came out with them, our world would be incredibly different.
Yeah.
It would be starkly different.
Yeah, especially when you have someone like him that's just vastly different than the majority of anyone that's ever existed.
Right. And there's one thing in particular, I'll let you talk after I say this, but
no.
He I don't want to say what invention this was that he did, because he had so many different patents, but one of them in particular, he went to the patent office about it, and then went and met with the GM of I forget who it was. I want to say it's Westinghouse, because he worked with Westinghouse a lot. That was the main company that he did things through the later years of his life. But he went there with this novel invention that was nonetheless a great idea, but there was somebody else in the room with him. I don't remember the name of this guy, but basically he admitted that what he had drawn down was much better than what we had going for the day. But he said, I'm going to try to quote this exactly. He said, that would make an enormous pile of scrap, wouldn't it? And then walked away. So it's basically like the reason that they didn't go with this futuristic-esque solution, or this solution that would do things better, is because it would create waste and make such a change in these people's lives that maybe they wouldn't be able to accept it, number one.
Yeah.
And number two, the society wouldn't have been able to handle the mass overhaul of the waste or just the crap that they had done. So
yeah, and I can't imagine that Tesla was the best conveyor of ideas and thoughts either. He seemed like kind of an asshole, but he was just so far beyond everyone.
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't a bad writer either. I mean, I read his autobiography, and he made me laugh several times throughout it, because he was kind of funny.
He was witty too,
quirky in his own way.
But I think when you talk about electricity, it's just going back to one of those things that we just don't realize that we have nowadays, that just we don't really pay attention to because it's everywhere in everything we do. Just the pieces of equipment just in this room alone that electricity powers is already unreal.
Yeah.
So the way that we've just been able to take it from, big sort of like DC power, I'm not going to go into that, but in these sort of like this, it seems kind of archaic power grid that they had back then, but that's how it started, of course, to where we have now, to where we have miniature microphones and we can send things, thousands of hours into space and miles away and stuff like that, just off of little electronic circuits and boards that we make.
Right. And speaking of microphones, I want to talk about microphones for just a small second because they are amazing. That's something that people really take for granted. What's inside our microphone is most of the time it's a human made crystal that is piezoelectric, which is basically it'll convert vibrations into electrical impulses, and that's what allows you to transfer it to some medium to modify it in whatever way you see fit.
Right.
Which is like piezoelectricity is something that's incredibly interesting if you look into it, because it can go either from vibration to electricity or from electricity to vibration.
That's cool.
So that's something that maybe if y'all are interested in any of the shit I'm saying, because I'm probably just talking out of my ass, but piezoelectricity is something that maybe you might want to look into.
Yeah, I heard this from Neil Tyson because I watch him all the time, but NASA's a big reason that we've gotten everything so small nowadays, because like because a lot of like our technology, it's either comes or is improved on by NASA, and a lot of things that we use for technology for space and just to engineer sort of products to go into space, we use in the real world too, obviously.
Right.
So they got really good at miniaturizing things, because obviously the smaller things are, the more you can pack on a space shuttle and the less it costs to carry it into space. So they were like a big reason, like we have like smaller radios and smaller, who knows, antennas and towers and things like that.
Right.
They had a big part in that.
That's neat.
Yeah, I think it's really cool. You never know how things can kind of transfer, but we've come a long way, obviously from like I said, our kind of archaic power grids that we used to have to the alternating current and kind of structures we have today.
Right.
It's definitely something people don't think about, but could you imagine?
They don't need to.
Yeah, just think about how much of a pain in the ass when your power goes.
I just burped and it tasted awful.
I really wish you would stop that.
I can't help it. I'm drinking beer.
Oh man, I don't even know what I was saying.
You're talking about AC and the power grid.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well.
I was just gonna say the times like when your power goes out and you're sitting there for like 5 minutes, like, ugh, what do I do with my day? Like it just then at those small instances do you realize how important it really is to you.
Right. But before we move on to some of the bad, I do want to harp a little bit on religion, because we never got to that. I want to talk about the good parts of religion before I start hating on it. So we can talk about the peaceful religions. Like the only two religions that come to mind that I can honestly say that I really believe are truly intrinsically peaceful are Jainism and Buddhism. Those are the two that maybe we can make an exception for. Jainism is like an overwhelmingly vegetarian, like that's what they preach throughout it. I don't want to talk about it because I don't know about it, but I know enough about it. I've heard enough about it to know that it's about as peaceful a religion as we can. Is it
like more environmentally centered?
I think so. But they don't like harming anything at all.
Nice.
And Sikh too, I think, is pretty peaceful, because Sikhs are the ones that actually wear the turbans. That's one thing that's like a common misconception, that people see somebody with a turban and they're like, "Oh, Arabic terrorists, kill them!"
Yeah, right.
Just like it happens so fast, they don't think anything.
That was a quick trail of thoughts there.
Right. I mean that's what happens in human minds.
Yeah.
But religion, I think it's been important for so many people, and it's something that can be really good if you use it for good.
Yeah, regardless of whether or not that, you find it acceptable nowadays, it literally sculpted society to what it is today. Because, obviously going back to especially Europe and things like that, the church and all that controlled everything. They were the state. They were the nation.
Yeah.
Everybody kind of worked for the church and through the church. So, whether or not you agree with it, it had a huge impact, not only society, but who we are today as humans.
Yep.
And our way of thinking about things.
It's really incredible to me to think about how much they did control everything about society.
Yeah.
But we're starting to get into the bad immediately. I want to talk about like how charitable it can make humans and how it can really turn people's lives around.
Yeah, that sense of community and just having someone next to you that has that common goal and that common theme in their life makes you more comfortable with them to open up with people that you may not otherwise open up to.
Right.
You can sit down in a church and know that you guys are all on this somewhat same spiritual journey here and all working towards the same goal to be, for some religions at least, the best people you can be and the most compassionate people you can be. I mean, that's the underlying theme of it, and it's really the only part I like it and accept about religion is the fact that, the commandment, especially for like Judeo-Christian beliefs and things like that, you have these commandments that are really structured towards something good and something beneficial for society in general. But and it's a good way to teach kids. It's a good way to kind of bring everyone together to harness, like, actually get good principles in their head as children. But for me, and this, I think obviously nowadays we can find better ways to do it. But there's no doubt in how it did structure us to this point in time.
And I was raised in a Christian household, and my mom was raised in a very Christian household, and she's part of the reason that, honestly, that I think that I have the values that I do have. I mean, I was taken to Sunday school and church and stuff like that for as long as I was growing up, and I can't honestly disavow that as something that was a part of the fabric of who I am. It helped give me the values that I have. Not to say that it's not possible to get those same values through some sort of scientific upbringing, but it was instrumental in making me the person I am.
And that's a good point, and something I haven't really, I haven't given it much thought because I hate more often than not. But and my parents, like I've said before, my mom wasn't super religious, so I never heard it from her. But my dad was religious in his own way, very kind of conservative Christian, but always, quoted Bible quotes to us and told us how to be good to one another and, treat your neighbor like you treat yourself and all these kind of golden rules that are throughout history. But at least in our household came from the Bible, so to speak. But and then my brother and I got really into church for a while. Like we were going, Sunday nights, Sunday mornings, Wednesday nights. Like we were in choir. We were there we worked at the church to volunteer. We were there all the time. And I think it was definitely during a good time of development when I wanted to be mischievous and bad and your hormones are taking over, very testosterone driven, very kind of, you have your sexualities developing and all this sort of stuff and you want to explore it. And so that was kind of a good way of kind of guiding me through that without letting me get off the reins too much or off the tracks too much. And it was a way of, enforcing it within myself to like, hey, you need to stay on the right track. So, without religion, I don't know if I would have been that way. If I would have especially been associated with a group of people that weren't religious and were kind of just, maybe not anti-religion, but kind of just misfits in general, it probably would have led me down that same sort of track where I was doing bad things. So I think in a way it did help guide me, and kind of structure me to be a better person. But ultimately, I don't know. I just wouldn't want that to be forced on anybody, of course.
True.
And make anybody feel like they have to go through that to get those same sort of life lessons. And that's where it really bugs me to a certain degree. But overall, it can be very beneficial if you use it in the right way.
Right. Yeah, I'm in agreement there, obviously. And unfortunately, if you're going to take your kids to church, you have to force them to go. You have to force it.
Yeah.
You can't say, oh, if you eat your broccoli, I'll take
Well,
you to church.
yeah,
No, Timmy, get your damn clothes on.
Yeah, at a young age maybe, but like I said, I started going just because I wanted to. My parents never went to church or asked me to go. I really went because my brother wanted me to go and started asking me, and I guess he was more of an influence at that time. Maybe I wouldn't have on my own, but I mean, we wanted to get up and do it. It was more like that sense of community. You got to go be with your friends. You got to go hang out. You all talking about the same thing. You're all on the same page, kind of like I said, working together for the same goal. It's like that sense of community that makes you feel good.
Yeah.
And that was like our way of doing it, and that's what we wanted. You know, I think, yeah, for definitely young children, they'd rather just play video games and not have to go to church. But like I said, hopefully nowadays people can see that you don't have to be a conservative Christian or Baptist or anything you want to be to live those same morals and to teach your kids going into the future that they should be decent people.
Right.
You know?
So we're kind of trailing off to the end of the good, but I wrote down some kind of funnier things that humanity has given us that I would consider good. I want to share.
Memes.
Huh?
Memes.
I guess that's one. I did not write that down, but they can be funny.
They're hilarious, especially through the trying times we're going through right now.
Yep.
People are really relying
Social
on
isolation.
them.
Yeah, I bet those memers are really getting their work cut out for them.
Oh yeah.
But I wrote down. I'll read you some of the things off the list. I wrote down Ryan Reynolds, Jessica Alba, the Red Hot Chili Peppers, me, Andy Dufresne, Jesus.
Standing ovation.
Yes, that's
Not
right.
for Jesus, for you.
Parks and Recreation, Scooby-Doo, Denzel Washington.
Wow.
Yeah, those are some. And then I also wrote down beer, cannabis, capitalism, and whiskey. Thank you, humanity.
Yes, if you're not proud about those few things, then you don't even need to be here. Just go sulk in your room and just be upset at the world.
That's right. Go to Russia or something.
Yeah. So let's. So now that we've talked a good amount of time on the good,
and I'm proud of that.
I was surprised.
Yeah, because there's a lot of good, man.
There is, and it's easy, you know, especially with the media and the way it's very easy to see in the time we are right now with everything going on. But it's very easy to see the bad parts in people, and I am incredibly guilty of this myself. I usually see the worst of people most of the time, and it's unfortunate, but something that, you know, and meditation will help with this. But something that people really should focus on is always applying themselves to be in the person's shoes that they're judging at that time. You know, it's easy in traffic. You get mad and you just want to call someone a dumb bitch or something, but you've probably done what that dumb bitch has done. Probably. You know, you've probably pissed people off.
I'm sure.
You know, so it's nothing to dwell over. It's nothing to harp on. You know, we all can make mistakes, but really try to put yourself in a different perspective to understand that, you know, most of the time, most people are trying to make the best decision they can at all times. So it's just kind of how we survive through life.
Right.
May not always happen, but at least kind of give people the benefit of the doubt.
And that way, from now on, if you do something bad in traffic and you make somebody mad, visibly mad behind you, and they're flipping you off or whatever,
and you just want to talk trash,
right? So when you have those bad thoughts, you want to flip them off back. You want to like just butt heads with them. Instead of doing that, you know what will get to them even more? When they pass you, a big old smile and a thumbs up, or just like a wave or something, or blow them a kiss.
That's more just condescending in general,
right? But I mean, you're being lighthearted, you're being happy, and in being happy, you're making them even more mad.
That is true.
So just like like I'd said before, it's a waste of time to harbor those negative emotions. So just purge them, take a deep breath, and just be happy. Yeah. Choose happiness.
Refocus yourself. Realize that your life is the only one you get to experience, and if you're not making the best of it every second, no one else is going to do it for you.
That's right.
If for some, and you know, some people are obviously more emotional than others, but really controlling that will help you just have a more satisfying life. Just day to day, just focus on. It sounds selfish, but to a degree, you should just focus on yourself. You know, because it's your life. You're not going to get it back. You don't get to come back and say, well, you know, I should have done this different here. You know, when you grow old, you're going to want to look back and say, you know, I made all the best decisions I could at that time. You know, as much as I was informed, I made the best decision, and I also lived my life exactly how I want to without worrying about scrutiny or anything from anyone else. You know, and at the same time, you were as mindful as you can be. You were as self-aware. You know, just really focus on, like I said, having a different perspective and also being mindful of other people and how they're interpreting life as they go along.
Right. And unfortunately, most people don't have, I'll say most lightly, I guess, because I don't think it's true that most people actually think through life the way that you just kind of described yourself doing. And people are just blind and ignorant. And I would be lying if I said it didn't bother me to no end.
Yeah, well, that's
the blind nationalism that I see in America. Just, gosh, it hurts me. It hurts my soul to see these people that they don't even know why. They don't worry about why. That question doesn't even cross their mind, why they are just so pro-America and like America's the land of the free and the home of the brave. Dude, we're not the only free country on the planet. Like, look at what we're doing. Look at the imperialism that we have used to spread our values and our democracy throughout the world. It's not something that was when we did that, it wasn't something that those countries were like, yes, please, like bring your democracy over here.
Right.
We were putting troops on the ground over there and enforcing.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's something that I just don't think people process.
Yeah, it goes back to just like you have the capacity to be a great human, to be a really good member of society, and then we happen to go down the wrong road a lot of the time and use that for the wrong reasons. But also to a degree of what you were saying is a lot of people don't want to make decisions. A lot of people don't want to have that sort of stress and anxiety of having to make big decisions for other people. It's much easier to fall in line and to go along and just assume that other people are right. Assume the kind of better nature of other people. If you told me something, I was just like, hell yeah, I agree with that. I'm going to go along with it. I'm taking your it may be you taking advantage of my better nature or things like that, but it's people just don't want to make that decision. It's too hard. It's easier just to kind of listen to the facts of the people around you and just kind of fit in the pot as you go.
Right.
It's unfortunate because it kind of takes away from your personal touch on things and your own opinions and intellect and the capacity you do have to experience life and make differences. But I can't just imagine that everybody's going to be that way.
No, definitely not. And that's like, I know it's an unrealistic thought to have, but I wish they could be. And that whole groupthink phenomenon that we were just talking about right now is just, it's another homage to like the way that I see the world. I don't know. I reject that whole groupthink mentality when somebody just says, hell yeah, because everybody's agreeing with everybody else. Like, if you put somebody in, I know they've done a bunch of groupthink experiments, but if you put somebody in a crowd, in a racist crowd, and the person up there is uttering anti-Semitic comments, and you're the one of the 100 people that's not doing anything, everybody's going, yeah, you're going to, most of the time, depending on how self-confident you are, you're probably going to join them.
Yeah.
That's just it's
just that kind of social pressure behind it.
Yeah. And that's like one of that and the whole blind nationalism thing are two of the first bad things that I wrote down. Imperialism, those things are just a very extensive imperialism or something, or two of the things that I just can't stand about humanity.
And I really think those people that are kind of creative and kind of go outside the lines are really the more like the movers and shakers of society. You know what I mean? It seems like those are the Christopher Columbuses. Those are like the Elon Musk, the people that
Christopher Columbus.
Yeah,
that guy was a piece of shit.
He was an asshole, but he still did something that I sure as hell wouldn't do. I wouldn't sail across the ocean on a boat for months.
You also wouldn't fucking wage war on the people that live there and
I
spread
wouldn't kill them
smallpox to
all.
them.
Yeah. And actually the Indians gave chlamydia back to the Europeans and they took it back to Europe.
That's great.
Yeah. So good for those bastards.
Yeah.
But anyways, what I'm getting at is it's just those people that will kind of think outside the lines of what's like what's normally accepted and say like, no, let's do something different. And like, let's think of this in a way that no one else is thinking about it. And they kind of, I don't know, seem to be the ones that are most creative and most successful.
Yeah.
Steve Jobs, the people like that, that are just willing to kind of think creatively in a whole different world than other people. Dr. Seuss.
Yeah, right.
Just weird.
So people who do drugs.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah, that could be what it all comes down to.
Yeah. But since we were on the subject of religion so recently, let's talk about the bad points that religion can take credit for, which I could say that there's more bad than good. I could say that.
Yeah.
And make a really good argument for it. If you are a Christian and you're listening to this right now, I'm not sorry.
Not even a Christian, just really any religious person.
Yeah, but just think about the countless atrocities that have happened throughout history as a result of some sort of imposing religious views on somebody. Most of the time it's a monotheistic religion because it turns into this absolute that if you don't believe this, you're wrong, so you're gonna kill them or whatever it is.
That has to, sorry to interject, but that has to be my biggest problem with religion in general, is just thinking that your one perception and interpretation of this text that you know nothing about is right and everyone else is wrong. And if they don't do exactly what you do, if they don't believe exactly what you believe, they feel like you're not inadequate, but you're a worse person than they are. Yeah. And that bothers me to no end. And I had a certain situation with people I won't name where a child is basically raised in a Christian household, and then when they see gay people, they're like freaked out and weirded out by it and don't realize that homosexuals are very normal and it's not something that should be ostracized just because it's something different than what your group of people think is right. Mm-hmm. And that just bothers me, that you have such kind of instinct and such, hard, true, belief and faith in what you believe in, that it's better than what everybody else believes. Every other religion, and Christians can't even agree on what Christianity really is. But they're the first. Well, they're the first to us because of what we're more exposed to. To just fucking sit back and say that everyone else is wrong because they don't interpret this shit the way that everyone else does.
Right. That's one of the first things about religion that really caught my eye. Like, I think it happened to me about in middle school when I had this thought: what happens to those people who died without being exposed to Christianity? Because that was right about the time, like, I'd been going to church my entire life and I'd started thinking for myself. Mm-hmm. And I didn't think this merciful, omniscient God would be so cruel to people who had never even heard of them. They would just send them to hell.
Right.
Like, because that's what I had been taught, Yeah. And that just didn't sit right with me. Like, how could this super wise guy be such a piece of trash on some like certain on certain topics? I don't understand, because that's like the ultimate judgment.
You know how much like heartache you could have just caused so many people.
I don't care.
I know, but and that's what's perfect about it. Is what I love about it.
Is that, like, how can he, at the moment of judgment, they were never exposed to this religion.
Nope, doesn't matter.
So they're going to hell. Yeah. And then that's when the Christians will say, oh, I'm sure there's, in that moment of judgment, he'll realize.
They'll judge their true soul and their heart.
Right.
Blah,
that's
blah, blah.
That's you speculating that. That's not what the Bible says.
Yeah.
And if you're a Christian, then, like, you have to believe what the Bible says. Yeah. And when you take and pull these different topics from the Bible, the things that you like, you're picking and choosing what you want, then at that point it becomes this personal thing, which is great. That's where we were talking about the good. It can be this personal thing. But when you're interjecting it onto people and assigning all of this malice and just nonsense to people that you don't even understand, it's nothing but bigotry.
Right. And I don't want to talk about my transition too much away from religion until we have a religious episode. But just the way it affects people and where things really get ugly is I mean, you said it perfect before. It's where we tend to, not only disagree and ostracize and excommunicate people that don't believe the same things we do, but it goes to as far as we've been waging war for thousands of years over just like these differing opinions of the same thing. Yeah. And it's like, is it really necessary to hold that true to your heart to where it actually creates acts of violence towards other people? Right. If it's just, like you said, some personal belief that kind of just helps you get through your day and it somehow makes you a better person and you take all the good from it and leave all the bad,
that's great.
Yeah, I'm cool with that. Please do it. Just keep it to yourself and don't start.
You can't force it on anyone.
Yeah, at someone
can recommend it.
Right, and people are as much as people aren't supposed to judge, hold that true to your heart. Don't judge somebody just because they don't think the same thing to you. Like I said, it's, try to be mindful of where other people are coming from. Other people, like you said, haven't heard of this Christian religion, haven't heard of whatever, haven't been exposed in the same way you have. They may have come from a different household, Muslim, any sort of religion across the spectrum. And they just just because they weren't raised the same way and don't see it the exact same way you do, doesn't mean they're going to burn in hell forever and they're the worst people ever.
Right.
And you have to conform them or transform them over to your religion. Like, just let it go and just accept that you're different people. You have different qualities, but you're still overall good people in general. That's going to beep for like 15 seconds and then it's going to go off.
God damn it.
I should have just pressed the button
instead
of throwing it across the floor.
But before we get off the bad parts of religion, which we should very soon, because there are lots of other bad parts about humanity, I did want to touch on one thing that I wrote down in particular about the things that religion can excuse people for doing. Which the one example that I wrote down is violating human rights just in general, because the Bible is not alone in condoning slavery. And not only that, there are people that follow the Bible and call themselves Christian Scientists that if their child is sick, then they will, in lieu of using Western medicine to cure this child that they know will work, they will say it's in God's hands. We'll pray the sick away. And then that child dies, and they're just like, well, I guess it was his time to go to heaven.
That just seems so wrong.
What?
Yeah. It's
those
sort of things we have to let go of and move on.
Yeah. I'm trying so hard not to judge people that do that, but it just seems so inhumane.
Yeah, it does.
I can't get over
that's just like the ultimate way of inflicting your own beliefs onto someone else by literally letting them just die and perish away and without any sort of.
It's not like they're consciously choosing to not have help.
Yeah, they can't make the decision. They're not old enough.
How is that not wrong?
Yeah.
Whatever. All right, so let's move on to let's go on.
Let me hit you with one. You got me with no, it's okay. You got me with religion, and we hit that one pretty hard.
Let's go.
Which. There'll be a lot more to come on that one. But one of the more subtle things of humanity that's becoming a problem is just the overpopulation. It's great that we are able to, procreate without much, opposition. Sorry, I couldn't think of the word, or much challenge from any other predator or anything like that. But now we're getting to the point where there's way too many people for us to feed. And now we're just cramming ourselves into smaller and smaller areas and not being able to feed people. And not only that, but it's creating deforestation and stuff like that. I mean, I couldn't imagine how the forest and woods were just across the United States that are compared to what it is now.
So I'm going to play devil's advocate. And like you said in a previous episode, all of the people on the earth could fit shoulder to shoulder inside Los Angeles.
Yeah.
And that's something that somebody could use to say that overpopulation is a myth. And I've heard this. People saying that overpopulation is another one of the things created by the political left to use as some sort of weapon. Some sort of, I don't get it either. That's something that people, they don't really think about. They think about the small area that it could occupy or how little it may be in the scheme of the entire earth, but we're not the only things here.
Not only that, but we have finite resources. We only have so much we can make, whether it's, medicine, food, shelter, water. I mean, we have plenty of water. We like I said before, we just
really don't, though.
We just have a salt problem. If we can figure that out, we'll be fine.
Yeah. It's expensive to convert
right,
salt water
but
to fresh water.
If it came down to it, like, and we had to make some grand goal to have fresh water, I'm sure we could do it pretty quickly.
Not for everybody.
Not for everybody. Oh, absolutely not for everybody. We don't even have food for everybody, much less water.
I just don't understand why people would deny the scientists that come up with this carrying capacity of the planet. They just, without even looking further into it, they're just like, oh, that's bullshit. You don't know that. You have no idea. There's
no way you can think is bullshit. There's no way that we can just keep having as many people as we want, and it's not going to affect anything. Where are those people going to live? Well, they're going to live on the land that you use to farm food for everybody, and we have agriculture for all the meat that us fat fucks eat all the time. Like, there is give and take to everything.
Yeah. And I posted some comment on a climate change post a while back. It got a shitload of likes and a shitload of comments, and one of the comments in particular that I read, it was some guy that said he was basically calling me ignorant and stupid because
you are.
Yeah, right. Because there's nothing scientific that can even close to correlate population with climate change. And I just I didn't even respond.
Yeah.
Because it's just common sense to think that if there's more people, there's going to be more consumption. And if there's more consumption, then there's going to be more shit expelled into the atmosphere and into our systems in general. Unless we can somehow curb consumption and curb our general effects on the planet. I mean, of course, there's like there's a big gap in between a person being born and the climate changing. Of course, there's a big gap there. That's like kind of a far reach, but it just makes sense. To me, that makes sense.
Yeah, we expel different gases and stuff than what would naturally occur, due to the amount of population we have.
How that's ignorant and stupid, I don't know. That seems like a pretty solid inference, if I may say so.
I agree. And good news on the topic, if we're talking about overpopulation, fertility rates are dropping.
All over the world?
I think.
I know in first world countries.
Yeah, this may be just a U.S. fact.
Okay, good.
But fertility rates are dropping. Why? It's funny because you hear about it all the time. Like, a couple generations ago, like my grandma had 19 kids or something. Like, what? What are you talking about? Were they all living in a big boot together? It's like, why would you have that? That is just so unnecessary. And why do you think China had to put a ban on how many children they have? We're procreating too much, and it's not necessary.
I want to say a lot of the reason that people back in the past were having so many kids is because of religion. I mean, Christianity basically says be fruitful and populate the
spread your
world.
seed. Yeah. I don't think it says that, but
I'm sure it doesn't. I'm sure it does not.
I feel like
I've read the Bible more than once.
I feel like it should somewhere. It should just squeak in there. Maybe a footnote. but I don't know. It's just not necessary. We don't have to have that mindset of everyone has to have a child. I mean, maybe I understand the excitement of passing my genes down to see how it would manifest in a different way. But all the rest of having a person to look after kind of takes that away from me.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's something we do just have to be mindful of. It's just kind of an unintended consequence of humanity in general. It's not something we're all out there going like, most people aren't out on the streets going, let me fuck as much as I can so I can overpopulate the place. I can't imagine there's some kind of diabolical person like that, but it is one of those things that's unintended and we should be mindful of.
That's an interesting conversation in itself. We could probably have a whole episode on overpopulation, but it's an interesting topic in itself, thinking about why fertility rates in first world countries tend to be lower. Or birth rates in first world countries tend to be lower than that in third world countries, because that's a thing. And that's an interesting. There have been lots of studies as to why.
I would think because we have the technology and resources here that we wouldn't need like an extra family members to run the family business and to help run the land to feed the family. It's like you need more farmers basically, so you just have more kids to help you out around the house.
And it's also a matter of focus and a matter of lack of time and stuff like that, because especially on the part of women, because they have this child and they take this maternity leave, so they have to leave their job for a little while to do this, and in order to take care of that child, they have to divert their focus from their job. And in first world countries, their jobs require a lot more time and effort instead of like doing this one job at the factory and then focusing on feeding their family. It's not something that they really think about. They don't really work. Gosh, I'm trying to tread lightly because I don't mean to be like sounding like a first world people have more to do kind of person. But we
have just different things to focus on, really.
Yeah, and they don't want to, like, they think about it this way. Somebody spends all this time getting a doctorate degree. They spend years and years and years educating themselves, getting a doctorate degree. They get into this, they finally get into the job that they want by the time they're 30 something. And then they're like, they don't want to take that time to raise kids because they're like, I spent my entire life getting to this job. I'm going to enjoy this job. I might not even get a boyfriend or whatever because I want to focus on me.
Right.
It's just a different world.
Yeah, it's kind of just a different concept. Like I said, we don't really need it as much. We can focus on other things rather than just what's necessary to kind of survive in our area.
Right. So off overpopulation.
Yeah, that was a good one.
That was good. I wrote down racism and systemic racism. We're going to talk about this. We're of course going to have an entire episode about this, but let's touch on it very briefly because it's obviously a bad thing.
It's one of the worst qualities of people.
Really? I can't disagree with that.
Especially in a more advanced society like we have today, because we don't have that sort of we shouldn't have that sort of tribalism that we did at one time to think like, hey, this is our group. We have to protect our group versus your group. Yeah. So in a way, I think it's somewhat programmed into us to kind of stick with our group. But at the same time, we're way past that. We're way more advanced than that. We have to know at this point that that's not what's actually going to make us survive like we once thought.
Yeah.
Coming together as a full human species is what's going to help us survive into the future.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those things that's just kind of left over.
Yeah, I hope it's trickling out. It seems to be.
Yeah, I hope it phases out with old people. Because, like, I just can't imagine a world in the future. It seems like the races are almost combining in a way, and that's like a prediction of the future, is that we'll all eventually be one race because globalism will be such a thing, and we'll stop thinking about that sort of thing and just interpopulate.
It's crazy how many kind of older people think that's the worst thing that can happen. Like even if like someone of a different race or ethnicity moves into like their neighborhood of primarily whatever they happen to be, it's like everybody takes notice. Everybody like almost takes like a certain offense to it. Like, well, we don't want, their kind around here, whatever it would be. And so it's sad that we still there is still that mindset out there, but I do, however, think it's trickling away. And at least I hope so. I mean, racism is obviously never going to fully go away, because I think that's just one of those things that, especially in America, people know that is hurtful to other people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's always going to be something that piece of shit person falls back on to really kind of psychologically, damage someone else if they can.
Yeah.
So unfortunately it's going to come out. There's going to be spouts of it forever.
Yeah, and not only that, it's being used in today's society as a weapon against. Well, I don't want to say that. I don't know if it's actively being used as a weapon or not, but I do know it's when slavery was abolished, it's turned into this systemic thing that we still can oppress people of different colors, mostly black people.
Yeah, especially in America.
It's a problem, especially like when figures of authority like police officers and that kind of stuff have these certain predispositions toward people of different races. Mm-hmm. And when we have things like those stop and frisk laws in New York, and just they can think of almost anything to pull somebody over. They just racially profile somebody and immediately assume 100 things about them. Yeah, and then make it more. And that makes it more likely that group of people gets into the jail system or the prison system, and that is a problem. There's a disproportionate amount of African Americans there, and that's not to say that there's not some sort of behavioral difference, because there is. I mean, a lot of the times African Americans are raised in different communities than white Americans are.
Yeah, a lot of that was kind of designated by the white people.
We've kind of put them there and given them this bad position, and that's why like we'll have a whole episode on affirmative action and reparations and that kind of stuff. And it's a problem. It's something that a lot of rich white people don't really think about. The positions that they were in are in now is because they've had that many more years, that many more generations of people that were able to do these things,
to elevate them to that position.
Right. And there are so many black families in America that just haven't had the same opportunities, and it sucks.
Right. And unfortunately, and like I said, hopefully this is going away, but unfortunately it's systemic, right? So they can't even like go and get the same jobs. They can't, and not only like black people, but females, and and luckily we're all progressing, and a blatant kind of transsexual or homosexual person would even have these same kind of challenges. Luckily for you and me, it's easier for us. But unfortunately it's just the mindset that these people have been forced into over generations that it's just going to take time to change. And I understand that people want these like reparations for what happened before, but we're a different kind of class of people now. I like to think, and we're not the same as the few generations above us.
I know that's definitely the case, and this is going to be something where we disagree on, and that's where I'm looking forward to affirmative action, because I'm not necessarily opposed to it. I think that if it's something that we can fix, then we should. Something that we can even partially repair, then we should do it. Because, I mean, it's not that we're responsible for the things that our ancestors did. It's that we are, by default, in this better position. So I don't know what it would be. I haven't looked that far into it. but it's something that I truly wouldn't have a problem with helping them out in whatever way that I can, to help bolster their position in whatever it may be. Because I mean, I was by default put in a better position than most black families were.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to say that me as a white person is responsible for the actions of my ancestors, because I'm absolutely not. Right. You can't treat me like I am. But at the same time, I'm in a position because of them. And because of that, I feel that I should be willing to give up a little bit of that to help bolster the African American community if I can.
Yeah. And and I think it all can happen to a certain degree. I don't, and I don't want to go down this road too far. We'll move on to the next point. But,
right.
I don't agree in handouts by any means, and just assuming that people should be in some degree or some position because of whatever happened before.
Right.
Like, if we're all generally given kind of the same resources at a younger age and make whatever we make of it, then that's just your personal decision and how you make it through life.
Right.
I understand that there's a lot of factors that go into that. But I don't want to get into that.
No, I'll stop here, but we're really just not given the same positions most of the time. And that's where my point of view on this lies. And I just don't, I'm not black, so I don't know what I can do to help them. Maybe we need to leave them completely alone. I don't really know, because that's something I've heard too. Because I've talked to somebody pretty extensively that did do African American studies, and they were white. And basically they were talking about how maybe it would be beneficial to leave African Americans to their own devices in their own communities and let them build themselves up away from white people, and we can reconverge.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
It just seems like any form of segregation is going to create problems.
I know.
I don't know if I can get on board with that.
Tough topic.
Yeah.
I don't know that I could either. That's a tough one. That's something that is very much cause for debate. I really have no idea.
Yeah. So I definitely think, just to kind of wrap your point up, I think racism is totally one of the worst qualities about people.
Yeah.
Whether it's inherent through evolution and things like that is one factor, but hopefully it's something it's petering out.
I hope so. I really do hope so.
So let me hit you with my next one.
Let's go.
Obviously, another thing that would go with overpopulation, and I got all these off of National Geographic, so it's not like it's hard to find out, but pollution goes along with overpopulation. More people, more pollution. We all take in resources, we all get rid of trash, and we all expel some sort of waste. We are, unless you seriously go through your day to day and take note of all the things you just waste and throw out, and all the plastic bags you have with all the food, and all the containers you have, and cups and straws, and your shoes and your clothes that you throw away. And like we're shedding skin as we go along, our hair's everywhere. You walk outside and you walk through trash that's on the ground. Like, we pollute the fuck out of the earth. And we're just completely destroying our environment with that.
Yep. And we don't really think twice about it. A lot of people don't even see it as a problem because they don't think about the consequences beyond, like, they'll see these videos on YouTube of a turtle with a straw on his nose, and they're like, "Oh, poor turtle."
Yeah, let's get rid of straws, but not all the other plastic we use for everything else.
Right.
It's funny when we go to, like, the mountains or whatever to go hiking, we go so far out there that you don't really see human remains. So it's so nice to just be that submersed in nature. And then, seriously, if you walk down any sort of major highway or road or anything in your town, there's just trash littered all down and you're just we're just going through trash every single day.
The cigarette butt thing really fucking kills me. Like, I want to, every time I see somebody smoking and they flick the cigarette butt on the ground, I want to say something every single time.
Yeah, I usually yell.
Yeah, it's because I see it as, like, they think they're better than the environment in a way. Maybe they're not really thinking about that.
Yeah, I'm sure they're not breaking it down that way.
Right, but they're just like, I'll do whatever I want. Like, that little flick is like I'm the ultimate who fucking cares thing. Right.
And not only that, like, that sense of being a rebel is it gets way, I mean, cigarette butts are worse because they're just small and people are like, yeah, this one's not gonna matter. But even though millions of people smoke and flick these things out, but people that just fucking walk around with, like, cans and beer bottles and, whatever food they're eating, they're like, oh, I'm fucking done, let me just toss it on the ground.
Really, dude.
It's like, you realize, like, that's just what bothers me. You have once again, I'm using the word capacity so often, but you have the capacity to just put in a little effort just to hold on to your trash and get rid of it in the proper way. And it'll actually go to a good use instead of just throwing it in the environment that we were created out of and assuming that it doesn't matter.
Right.
That's just so inherently selfish.
Because the world is so big. Yeah. Man, I'll never be able to see eye to eye with somebody who can just trash the world like that.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, this thing gave us life. It gives us life continuously.
We are a part of the earth. We are just an extension of the earth itself, and we're just completely trashing ourselves.
Right. And I read something, I don't know how true it is, but I read something about how fish are slowly starting to envelop plastic as a part of their being because it's like in the ocean water and they're filtering it. So they're like these little bitty pieces of plastic that people are just finding in their fish sometimes.
Yeah, I know that for a fact that like dead fish that like kind of just float up, or fish that we find like, they ingest plastic bags and all kinds of shit that's just floating around the ocean. I mean, we have those. I think I said this last episode, but there's just the masses of trash and like fucking landfills out in the middle of the ocean. And you said that the Marianas Trench had a
I found a can at the bottom of some. It might not have been the Marianas Trench, but it was some really deep trench. They found a beer can.
It's just bizarre to me, and just people just have no regard. And the unfortunate thing is, like I said, the more the population is like, where are we going to put it anyways? It's just going to continue to fill the oceans. That's why we have to get back to this upcycling and recycling to turn whatever we use into something else. Create things that have a purpose that can live forever instead of creating things that have this perceived obsolescence that I could not think of the word last time.
Nice. And instead of spending hundreds of years to build this church and see no sight and end, why don't we spend hundreds of years to see no sight and end and clean up the ocean? There's not really a sight and end
because we are a very reactive bunch.
Yeah, we are.
So we're gonna wait until the climate's changing so much that it's killing people, and we're rationing for food and creating war just to survive until we actually decide to make a change in the world, or until we just kind of extinguish to where it cleans itself up. I mean, obviously that plastic and shit's not gonna go away for thousands of years. And I wrote down stuff as far as like not pollution. Pollution means a lot of things. There's air pollution where we're changing the climate, and we just talked about climate change, so I'm not going to get into that too much, but it turns into ocean acidification, which, kills our sea animals, exactly, what we came from or what we think we came from, or evolved from, I should say. And we're just completely destroying it. Like, it just doesn't matter. Right. Like, we're so entitled nowadays that shit just doesn't matter anymore.
This world is ours. And I think that's another thing that I can honestly attribute to religion, is that we feel like we own the world, not belong to it.
Yeah, we're not a part of it, right?
We were given this by God, by divine right,
and we can
do whatever the fuck we want.
That is for anyone that actually thinks that may hear this, that is the dumbest, most ignorant, selfish thing I've ever heard. And there's no way you can rationally think about anything that you do in society and come to that conclusion. So get rid of your book and maybe pick up like a textbook or something like that, something that's real and has been experimented. And
just read about some science.
Some real science.
Something.
Not whatever science
Not saying become a Scientologist.
Right.
Just read. Read things that have had studies done on them. Read. Come on. Other than the Bible, please.
Yeah.
I don't want to say throw away your Bible like Brennen did.
I'll say it. Yeah. Get rid of it. You don't need it.
Whatever. Somebody has to say it.
Yes. We can do better than that. We can write a better Bible nowadays. Anyway, sorry.
All right. So we've covered most of the things, pollution and earth scarring, like when we have humongous mines that have just scarred the earth. Like if you could zoom out, you would see all these problems.
And it would take thousands of years for that, if it ever kind of grew back to be the same way. Yeah, maybe not that, maybe hundreds of years. I don't know, because things do grow pretty fast, but and they kind of repopulate faster, or the environment does.
What it is,
right. Some of that stuff will never come back the way that it was.
But I did split the bad and the ugly. So I split things into ugly that I thought were worse than bad. So this is where I'm going to bring up war and human rights violations and terrorism. These things speak for themselves. I don't really have to tell you why war is bad, but it's something that has been instrumental in in the upbringing of humanity.
It's a topic that's been developing over a long time as well, because what we consider human rights nowadays, 100 years ago, is completely different.
Right.
It had to take time, and unfortunately, again, a lot of people dying in a lot of war and a lot of battling for people to go, maybe that's not the best idea.
Right.
Maybe we can come up with something else. And that's a part of advancement. That's a part of why have these ideas and traditions that are thousands of years old when we can obviously come to more rational conclusions right now.
Keeping something around just because it's old is a completely invalid excuse.
It's the only way that it seems real, though, right? If it's been around, there's got to be a reason it's been around so long.
Yeah, that's right. It's always been done this way. Therefore, I will continue to do it this way.
I'm dug in.
You sound like a fucking idiot.
Yeah,
I just
really.
want to say that. But I don't have to say why war is bad. I don't have to say why human rights violations are bad. I don't have to say why terrorism is bad. But that's something that I had to list here as part of why humanity just fucking sucks.
And it goes back to, like I mentioned earlier, just the way that we have creative minds to think of these diabolical plots to destroy one another. It's not like, you made me mad and I'm going to go fight you and try to destroy you. It's like, how can I destroy your whole family and everything you've ever believed in type thing?
God, man, saying that, I have to say this. For those of you who have watched this far, if you voted for Donald Trump or support Donald Trump, I'm going to say this one thing. And if you hear this and continue to support Donald Trump and continue to idolize him or think he's a good president or whatever, then you're basically a fucking piece of shit. So let me say this. And I remember this quote because it struck me so hard that somebody that was even considered for the seat of president could say some shit like this and get away with it. So he said on national television and repeated himself that if you kill a terrorist, you should also take out his family, his wife and children. Our president said that on national television. How could you vote for that and not yourself be promoting? If you've heard me say that and then support Donald Trump and you vote for him again, how are you yourself not promoting killing the families of innocent people?
It seems
or innocent people who are families of not innocent people.
It seems indicative of just like the mindset that we have nowadays. It's kind of like everything kind of turns back to religion for me, but it's almost like let's pick the things we like about it out of the subject and go with that, but just kind of ignore all the things we don't like slavery in the Bible and like people raping one another and if God doesn't like them, he just kills all of them. Like, let's forget all that. Let's think about all the good stuff.
Right, like God mauling 52 people because they made fun of some bald guy. He came in the form of a bear and mauled 52 people. That's a true story.
Yeah.
Look it up.
Yeah,
it's in the Bible.
There's a lot of bad stuff in there.
What?
Yeah.
This is why, I really admire people like Ben Shapiro because he admits that there's a lot of stuff in the Bible that's nonsense. Yeah. And it makes me like him. He's a conservative mind. Most of the time I don't lean towards people that are on the right, but I like Ben Shapiro. I do. I can't say
it's just that fundamentalist idea that really strikes me as odd. And that I'll never be able to get on board with. I can't even get on board with any of it, but like that's just the far extreme of it.
Yeah. But since I don't want to harp on terrorism and stuff like that because that also comes from religion. Dean.
Yeah. In a form of that, if I may, is kind of in like a regional areas, but I was gonna get into deforestation, but like animal poaching and things like that is a terrible quality of humans. And I understand we had to kill animals to survive and get where we are today, but not just for game. Like I don't know, I don't know this. I heard this from a person, so blah, blah, blah. It may not be real, all that. But the CEO or whatever of Jimmy John's, like, hunts big game. And
so that's something that can be inherently misleading because there are certain licenses that are given out, certain permissions that are given out to hunt large game like that. Let me give you an example. These are pretty few and far between, but it's something that it's easy from the outside looking in to look at this person and say they're a bad person. I'm not saying the guy who owns Jimmy John's isn't a piece of shit, but what I am saying is that there are some excuses to kill megafauna. For example, a little while back, there was a pride of lions out in Africa, and every time a new male lion would emerge that was going to challenge the alpha would kill them while they were young. He was basically just a badass lion that he was getting old and he
wanted to stay in power.
Yeah, exactly. So basically they were studying this for a long time and they decided they needed to kill him because he was the lion population is dwindling already,
right.
And they need more males to fertilize and diversify the lion population.
Right. Because of why are they dwindling?
Right.
Because of us.
Poachers.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so I'm not saying that it's okay to poach.
But it's interesting that there's instances where it's actually necessary.
There are.
Yeah, that's a good point to bring up.
Yeah.
But it is sad how often and how many species, especially in Africa, are near extinct because of one part of their body that makes them valuable, like an ivory tusk or something like that.
That is really sad.
Yeah, and now you have like full rhinos that are just left there to die and their tusks are cut off.
And it's gotten so bad that they literally preemptively cut off rhino tusks. Like put them down and cut off the tusks so that poachers won't shoot them.
Jesus, man, we're just. It seems like their whole defense mechanism and everything. Like we're just, it's kind of, a simplistic way. It's like declawing a cat almost. It's like they can't fight for themselves now. I know that aggravates them. They can't scratch them. It's like the same thing.
Right, but you're doing it to save their lives and doing it to save the entire species.
Right. There's a better point, but it's like, can we not just try to mitigate the human aspect of it as much as possible and before we just start just changing their species?
They have people out there that hunt poachers. And I would be...
That would be a fun job.
I was going to say I would be happy to.
Yeah, that would be awesome. It'd be
so
scary.
much rather do that than go to war just against other humans.
Yeah.
I would relish...
It'd be nerve-wracking, but it'd be fun to stand out there with like a sniper.
I honestly don't even think I would be scared because they're not hunting for me.
Yeah.
I'm hunting for them.
But they're well armed.
I'm sure.
So if
so would I.
Right. But yeah, I guess
I would be willing to give my life for that because that's something I feel like is larger than me.
Yeah.
So that's something I would be willing to do.
It's giving back to an earth and an environment that gave life to you.
Right. And diversity is it's the spice of life. It's something that has kept our biological world alive and as thriving as it is.
Yeah.
I mean, something I'll bring up during our evolution episode next time is that the Earth is as biologically diverse as it's ever been. It's more biologically diverse than it's ever been.
Surprising as much deforestation and things that are going on. I can't imagine how many how many species have actually gone extinct due to humans.
And that is another thing that I will bring up right now.
Do it.
Is that it's one of the worst things that I have to say about humanity. And it really hurts my soul, and it's one of those things that it's part of what made me so passionate for the environment is that humans are the cause of the 6th mass extinction that has ever happened on this planet. Mm-hmm. We're the cause of it, and we're the only one that has been caused by a single species.
Right?
Because it's literally just because we kill, and it's at this point it's not even to survive.
No, it's just for pleasure, a lot of it,
profit.
Convenience.
Yeah, and it's for profit in the Amazon, and a lot of the times they don't even have another choice. They just go out there and log forests, and they have to make a living.
Yeah.
So that's for them to survive, but I have to believe that there are ways to get around that. There are other things that we can do to get them money whatever it is to help them sustain themselves without cutting down a forest to build a palm oil farm. Which is like another thing. Palm oil isn't the only bad thing, but research your ingredients. Look on the back of your nutrient labels, and if it's got palm oil in it, you probably shouldn't buy it because you're helping. You are promoting deforestation with your money.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that go into that. I think Lumber Liquidators got in a lawsuit for illegally like farming trees and stuff out in the Amazon and shit like that.
Yeah,
like it's such a big problem, and it's just for money. And that's the sad thing about it is that, is we tend to obviously put ourselves before the environment. And a lot of that, again, is just because we're kind of cut off from environment. We're in our houses all day. All we have is electronics. All we have is entertainment. We don't necessarily think about the processes that, happen through the formation of our earth that led us to where we are today. We are a product of the environment. We're not separate from it. We're not something that can exist without it. We are perfectly suited to the environment that we live in.
Yeah.
And if we start changing it even slightly, we're no longer suited to live there anymore. And we have to, the earth is either going to reset itself and just kill us all and do something else, or we're going to have to move or create a different biosphere for us to live in.
And that point that you brought up is something that I cannot harp on enough, and it's something that I've thought about really extensively. Is that we are so isolated from our planet that we don't see the things that we're doing.
Yeah,
we literally just consume your dollar. The things that you are spending on are the thing. That's what you promote.
Yeah,
because you make change through your spending. Not only that, but through whatever, like what we're doing now, what we're trying to talk to people and envelop a change in that way.
Yeah.
But your dollar goes a lot farther than you think it does, and being so isolated from the earth, you just don't see the impacts that you have.
Right, and most of our life is virtual. I mean, like the people listening to us now and watching us now. I mean, everything is through our phone. Everything's like, again, through our electronics. I don't know what just beeped. That one is no longer recording, and this one is. So maybe we should just start putting our closing points on it,
Yeah,
and
let's
just in
wrap it
case
up.
we run out of stuff. Anyways, so we've gone from, and I just want to make a few points real quick to just how lucky we are to be on this earth and the things that we should appreciate about it. Is a lot of people don't know, but without our gas giants out in the solar system like Jupiter and Saturn, that we may not have the life we have today. They're very responsible for keeping asteroids and comets away from us and sucking them into their gravity, or due to their gravity, and keeping them away from us. You know, I don't know why I went out in the solar system, but our moon creates tides that possibly is what helped us create life and transition life from the ocean onto land. And there's just the magnetic field is always protecting us from solar rays and radiation, and there's just so many factors that go into us should being thankful that we're alive and that we have the opportunity that we have to continue forward off the backbones of the people that worked before us. But we tend to take a lot of things for granted and separate ourselves from everything that's happened before us to think that we're some grand species now that can never mess up or be a failure to our existence.
Right, because God don't make no junk.
God don't make no junk.
But man, since our main camera has stopped recording, which is sad. We're gonna, I guess, maybe go ahead and end without doing our other
without
game.
a final segment. But it's okay. I think we did a great job of kind of being entertainment and showing that we worked hard to kind of display our thoughts in a way that people can maybe agree and understand them. And hopefully, for the whole reason we're doing this is to make a change and make people think about things differently than what they have before. And hopefully we did that in this episode.
I think we did. And we'll be sure to play Animations Gone Wild in our next episode. But I just want to leave you guys with this. I really believe humanity is the most powerful force this earth has ever seen. And with that, we have great responsibility. We do amazing things. We are amazing. But along with that, we are also capable of great travesty. Yeah. And we should keep that in mind when we're making our daily decisions. Yeah. Because life happens in every single breath that you take. Consider the things that you're doing. Yeah. To both yourself, the people that are around you, and your environment. And consider how separated you are from your environment and what has led up in this point in time to make you throughout history. So just consider those things going forward. Yeah.
Be mindful, be considerate, and realize that there's a whole sort of scenario that goes into making the system that you experience every day. And try to make the best of it if you can.
Mm-hmm. So with that, I guess we'll end, guys. We appreciate you if you've listened this far. We hope that we have
opened some eyes, maybe.
Yeah, invited a little bit of change into your life. Just even the smallest amount. That's been the goal of this, especially with this episode. I really want to open your eyes to a different perspective, a different way of seeing what you are and what has led up through this point in time throughout history to make you.
Yeah, and give you the mindset that you have now.
That's right. And give you all of the things that allow you to live this incredibly comfortable life that you do live.
The conveniences we have are grand. That's and we should not take them for granted.
Right. So thank you guys. Yeah. We love you. This has been Cause and Effect episode 7. Cause and Defect. Yeah. Cause and Effect. Cause and Defect episode 7. Yeah. Humans, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Bye. I wonder why that middle one stopped recording.
It probably ran out of time, dude.
I know, but these other ones have to be super close then. I mean, you would think it's the same memory.